Good day, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Culture8 Podcast, brought to you by Izini, your trusted partner in building thriving workplace cultures. Here we explore the intricate and dynamic world of organization culture, uncovering insights and strategies to help leaders and teams foster an environment where people and business can grow together. Today, we are talking with Barbra, founder and CEO of Pando. Welcome to the podcast, Barbra. It's an honor to host you on the podcast today.
Hi there. Thank you.
Awesome. Please tell us a little about Pando.
Sure. So Pando is a progression platform. We sit in the performance management space. Our goal and my vision really is to kill performance reviews once and for all and help organizations move from cyclical annual performance reviews to what I call always on or continuous performance calibration.
Fantastic. I'm all in support for Pando's work because honestly, everybody dreads performance reviews because it just doesn't make sense and it's not in line with anything in anybody's growth or company's growth or goals, nothing.
That's true. It's actually a very inauthentic process that ends up happening because it's sort of this arbitrary moment of the year that happens and everybody's like, ooh, performance reviews are coming. I better, go talk to this guy or start doing all these projects or whatever it is just to, in some cases, cover their butts. And in other cases, I think people have been working and performing throughout the year and that has not been recognized or is not made transparent, and managers fall trapped to a lot of unconscious bias that isn't always their fault, but a lot of times can impact folks, negatively or positively. And at the end of the day, the data that we get from performance reviews is not great to begin with. And then that's what we use to decide if people are getting promoted or pay raises or managed out or whatever. And I think, the overall process and system is really well overdue for a major overhaul.
Absolutely. I mean, you mentioned about biases. I think there's a whole bunch of recency bias which comes into effect as well. And
100%.
And I was visiting my cousin last year at Christmas, and she was talking about I have to stay up late over the weekends trying to finish off or catch up on my reviews, and then post that she has to review the indirects that she also manages. So it's just not a very good system to begin with. So I'm glad you guys are out there and making difference.
Thank you. Awesome. It's an uphill battle, but it's one that's worth fighting.
Absolutely. And you know what? The evolution of the world and the evolution of the future of work, as we call it, is definitely taking us there. It's the positive feedback that we bring into the system, like companies like yours, companies like Izini. We are here to make that change to a better way of doing things rather than just legacy of how we were. Awesome. So before we take a deep dive into your views and beliefs, and we've already seen a glimpse of it about organization culture, I would like to ask you a question to allow our audience to get to know you better. What was your very first job?
Well, I guess technically it was like a baseboard cleaner. My mom, she was a single mom raising me and my sister, and she owned a janitorial cleaning service. She cleaned houses. She had a crew that cleaned office buildings. It was my first exposure to a tech company in the late 90s. And yeah, I think maybe when I was already like 5, 6, because she would take me with her without childcare, I would have to, dust baseboards. I did get really good at navigation though, because she cleaned like 6 houses a day. So she was very, very efficient.
Nice. I like it. Awesome. Thank you.
I've had many, many jobs though, like all kinds of different jobs. I've worked since I was 5. So
that is really powerful. And I really envy you. Don't get me wrong. In the sense, I grew up in a place, or rather well protected. I didn't take up my first job right after, like only after college that I got into a job. Indian parents are sort of like that, and we don't have that kind of opportunities out there to just go out and work like the kids out here in the US have.
Yeah, it's definitely a different culture.
Yeah.
I actually, like in high school, I did my own kind of businesses. Like whenever even before high school, like when I was a kid, probably in elementary school, middle school, if I wanted money to go and buy some candy or sweets or whatever, I would do things like make homemade bookmarks and then go door to door and sell them. When I was in high school, I was making jewelry and selling it at like some of the boutiques. I grew up in Orange County, so there were a lot of boutiques like along the beach in Laguna Beach.
Right.
Yeah, so I did a lot of just I didn't work at like a restaurant or a grocery store, but I had my own all kinds of my own businesses throughout my career.
Fantastic. So you had that CEO bug in you, all entrepreneur bug in you, all the while.
I did always want to be a CEO, so
Fantastic.
success.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I would go into a little bit, but my daughter just recently got her first job. She's 15, and she's working at an ice cream shop, and she's excited. She's always, I
Nice.
have a job. I have a job.
Independence.
Yes,
Spending money.
exactly.
Nice.
Awesome. Well, moving on to organization culture, that's what we are here to talk about. What are the top three elements that define your organization culture? And how do these elements influence your company's success?
I think, I've obviously spent a lot of time thinking about values, and my background is also on the marketing side. So brand and sort of vision and all those things come into play here. And I think at Pando, there's probably three things that I value the most. We do have, a great culture that's very transparent. But I think autonomy is one of them. Um, Authenticity is another. And then I guess I kind of group like candor, transparency, psychological safety kind of together.
Yes.
Um, they're all sort of interconnected. Those are probably like my top three.
Gotcha. And any examples that you might have that showcases these as the success that you have today in your company?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're a distributed team, so we default to trust and hire people that are autonomous and can be autonomous, but we're also a highly collaborative culture, so we really work out ways that we can be collaborative together and still everybody kind of knows what they need to do and can do those things.
Yeah.
I think I guess on one hand, we like I guess as simple as our team all hands, like we do a huddle every couple of every other week, and we're very transparent about where the business is.
Mhm.
So for example, what our current runway is, what our burn rate is, where we're at in sales, what our revenue targets are. So everybody at the company is very aware of the things that we're focused on and the priorities, and they do change. Obviously, we're a startup, so the priorities change. We're constantly adapting. So we have kind of like our broad plan that that isn't like super tight, but it's loose but structured enough that we can be focused and move towards that, but also have the opportunity to adapt. We also do like product kind of, we call it a builders workshops. This is, I guess, it's not really a hackathon, although we do those and we incorporate everybody in the organization, but it's more like we'll pick a couple of core themes or challenges that the business is facing at the moment. and we invite everybody at the company, and we set up structure for this, but we do kind of like builder workshops to essentially involve everybody in the challenges. So sometimes it could be a product challenge or a pain point we're trying to solve for a customer. Sometimes it could be a marketing issue, or maybe we're trying to get greater brand awareness. And we involve everyone. So even if it's marketing, we have engineers involved, we have design, we have customer success. So everybody gets to contribute to how they think about Pando and what we're trying to accomplish, so that everyone is really invested in where we're going, but also contributing outside of, their job description.
I absolutely loved every part what you said and about how you're leading the company, how you're working together in the company. Pando is gonna go places. Mark my words, as a culture consultant, I can tell you these are exactly everything that every organization should be doing. Autonomy, given people the decision-making power, you have this boundary, you have this context, please go make the deals, because they're the ones who are going to make the deals with the greatest insights, right? With the decision-making power. That's the autonomy part. It is so big. The other point I want to make is about the transparency. When I started thinking about what I will work with and how I will work with my clients, transparency about numbers is a huge aspect of it. You need to be able to let the team know how they are making impact to the dollar earned by the company. That would intrinsically motivate them to just move forward and give their best out of it.
I'm actually surprised by how many companies aren't more transparent. And I think, distributed workforces and a lot of people obviously working remote post COVID really changed the way that we have to operate. And when I joined Miro, actually, the company was primarily co-located. There was one really big office, and then I was based in San Francisco. There was, I kind of built up that office, and it was more of like a hub model. So it wasn't fully remote. But one of the insight and sort of things that I advocated for as soon as I joined was that if we have anybody who's remote, we need to operate as if the whole company was remote, because otherwise you have pockets of people who have no idea what's going on, or they feel disconnected, or their general work experience is not as great. So like if you're the one person who's in Austin, Texas, and everyone else is in an office together and they're all around a table with one camera, speaking up at the wall, you're like the person on the wall. So for example, that was something that we changed, that if you can all be in a room, but you all need to be on your own device and logged on independently, so everyone has the same experience. I think, internal communications is another place where that really comes to play. Like we need to be much more thoughtful about documentation and being deliberate about communication, and assuming that, people aren't going to get things because they're not in the office or whatever it is.
Yeah. And I love that concept. Seriously. I mean, yeah, the communication, and it seems like you're really working hard on the collaborative aspect, including everybody into the decision making about what the company should be moving forward or what should we be developing. Again, like I said, you guys are
They
going to
don't
go.
necessarily make the decisions, but I mean, not everybody. It's not a democracy, but it is we get a lot of value from hearing everyone's experience and what their input is. And we also want people to have the opportunity to contribute. So a lot of times our best ideas and strategies and pivots and iterations to strategies come from those sessions. But it isn't, we also intentionally are not a consensus based culture either.
Fair enough.
That's a
Fair
decision
enough.
that we've made.
No, actually, no, you're absolutely right. You cannot really necessarily have consensus. Not everybody I didn't mean it that way, but what I'm trying to say is that everybody feels involved. And it makes a
Definitely.
difference in your motivation about how you're going to work together. Even if my ideas are not selected, but I was involved, I was asked, what do you think? That makes a huge difference. I feel belong
Yeah.
to a team.
I think too, when you're a remote company like we are, you really have to think about the kind of work you do together and what the format of work is.
Yeah,
So we don't do like our all hands tend to be more interactive. Sometimes, there are, people giving updates, but we don't spend like a lot of time in presentations like projecting information. Like a lot of the when the group is together, it is more kind of collaborative, workshopy. We obviously do like a lot of retrospectives and kind of
yeah,
planning sessions together and things like that, where it's not, yeah, like we can easily post updates in Slack or send emails or, publish results and stats and all of this stuff. When we're together, we try to do work together, especially since a lot of people on the team, most of the people on the team are working independently for the
right.
most part. Like, obviously, there's collaboration, cross functional, et cetera, but a lot of people work independently. And so we try to do that. And then because we're remote, we also try to incorporate some fun. So we have like Pando socials the last week of every month, which is virtual, and we just play games together. Depending on
Nice.
what time zone you're in, it's like brunch, lunch, or dinner. Um, and yeah, and we also on those days, it's like our debt day. So it's not just about engineering debt, but like anybody at the company who has that administrative or thing that they really want to do, but it's not a priority because it's not going to impact results right now or
Yeah.
anything like that. They have that day kind of free and clear of meetings and obligations so that you can basically work on, whatever debt is weighing on you.
Yeah, no, I'm loving it, and I like the. I think there's a commonality in your think. There's a whole bunch of commonality in our thinking, but you it talked about the fun day part of it in the month. I actually work with a client, and I'm helping them with their agile transformation and a culture transformation without them knowing about it. But um, I introduced that as that part about, hey, every Friday, and it's just a Friday, and it's like every Friday that we do it, but it's a call a fun day. We have a 45-minute session where we are just playing games like on
Yeah.
online, and we are playing together. It's just changes the team's dynamic. I
Yeah.
think.
I mean, it's good to have some social time and you really have to plan and structure it and
Yeah.
not like leave it to fate if it's going to happen when you're in a remote team, especially.
Yep. Being intentional about the culture that we are creating. Awesome. Well, I think you talked a little bit about this, I suppose. Would you share a quick example of a recent culture initiative and its impact?
A culture initiative?
Yeah.
Um, Yeah, so we do those kind of product workshops, which are called builder workshops. We do those on a quarterly basis. I think our biweekly team meetings, we create a lot of transparency and space for sharing. We do like we celebrate people's anniversaries in various ways. Usually it's like we use Miro a lot. So it's like a Miro board where everyone kind of gives them, messages and things like that. We also do a lot to just continue to educate ourselves around things like diversity, equity, and inclusion. So last year for Black History Month, we did like a book club and read how to be an anti-racist. And we've also done things like kind of show and tell for, women's appreciation month or whatever it is that people really want to celebrate, where we talk about, authors or scientists or people who've inspired you. So we try to like weave in some of these things that are relevant to the work that we're doing at Pando, but also just like being all around better humans and
Yes.
also creating, more empathy, sharing, and knowledge around, different cultures and things like that. We do have people in 4 different countries. So, everyone's not
Wow.
American and we don't expect everyone to behave like an American.
Yeah. No, it's beautiful. I'm reading this book, Fifth Discipline by Peter Senge, and I think he talks about a CEO of Fritz, I think, and that gentleman talks about that we can't just be thinking about development of our people at work. We should be thinking about development of our people all throughout, like a 360 degree or a wholesome development, not just as individuals working in a corporation. So I think that
Yeah.
you guys are doing the right thing. Fantastic. Awesome. All right. So companies come with challenges as well, like in our work environment. What is one major challenge you've faced regarding organization culture, and how did you overcome it?
Um, I think let me think of a good one. I didn't prepare for that one. You're gonna
No
edit,
problem. And I'll tell
right?
you, I'll be
No,
honest
no,
with
it's
you.
okay, but you're gonna edit it down anyway. Like it was okay that I just broke out of
No, I'm
character,
actually
right?
not going to edit this. This is
Oh
perfect.
no?
No, but I think I'll
Okay.
tell you why you might have a difficulty, because
Uh-oh.
facing this all the time, and you are very progressive in terms of your thinking, not just you as a leader. Obviously you bring that culture, but your entire team, your challenges are just day to day. This is what it is. Oh, okay, fine, let's take it on and move beyond it and solve it and move beyond it as a team. That collaborative nature would allow you to not even think about challenges as big challenges. I guess you welcome challenges because you don't
Well,
think of them as
we do. I think like the challenge with that question for me is that I'm so deep into Pando and like Pando is still an evolving culture, but it's also something that, already had cultural values before I even had like 4 employees.
yeah,
So it's not that it's all, rainbows and unicorns. Obviously, there's been growing pains and challenges, but
yes,
I think we deal with organizational culture change all the time, mostly through our customers, though, because
right,
we are helping customers who basically are coming to us because they want to drive organizational change. They want to move away from annual performance reviews. They want to have continuous feedback, all of these things.
right,
And they're met with a lot of resistance by managers, by company leadership for mostly things like, well, we don't want to make levels transparent. Like, that's too much transparency. It's like, well, who is
yeah,
that too much transparency for? Because it's
mm,
definitely not too much for employees. But then it's like, well, there's manager dynamics, and this person is not in the right level, and this person's paid too much. And so there's all of these things kind of to unpack.
mm,
And I think that the thing that we kind of work on and help to support in those situations, and I think for anybody going through organizational change, is that it's like the little steps towards the big thing that you're trying to get to, and not like, here is the change we're trying to make, and we expect to get there just overnight. It's really like, okay, well, for example, Pando is a performance system that's based on competency based performance. So that's how we make it more transparent. That's how we make it structured. That's how we create highly relevant context for individuals around what their performance should be. And a lot of companies don't have anything. So it's
mm,
like, okay, well, you can start with just introducing levels and making sure that everybody's leveled in the right place. And then instead of going through all of the competencies, like start with your core values and start training people on how to give feedback around core values. And
Yeah.
then you can introduce and add complexity and add more and layer more. So it's like, obviously we're a system. And so there's a lot of bells and whistles, there's a lot of tools, there's goals, there's meetings, there's all these things, but it's really about kind of figuring out where you're trying to get to and how do you sort of layer these things on. And I would say that like a lot of communication and over communication is really important because most of the time, people didn't get any of it.
No, absolutely. And you're 100% right. First of all, organization cultures are very complex. Change is hard because it starts to really question your beliefs and and how your values, right? And that's why when someone wants to alter our change and change our way of thinking, our beliefs, it's difficult to let go of that. And so,
Yeah.
to your point, you said over communication allows for what I will call, what I've learned from is the learning anxiety that we face as change comes into picture. So over communication helps me to overcome my learning anxiety, and that's the way to make change happen and make it
Yeah,
easier. And really takes time. You can't just
it does.
expect it to happen overnight. You have to, like you said, very well, step by step, take it step by step. Um, this is something that we work on in my company on organization, is to help customers or clients come up to understand what their basic assumptions and values are. That is the deep ingrained, the culture DNA, which allows them to move forward or to be just or hinders their
Right.
progress because that's the way they think.
Right. I think it's also like be honest about that. So, for example, our goal is to make performance fair and equitable and always on.
Yeah,
And we do have a lot of kind of methodology and philosophy baked into the system. But at the same time, like it's really up to you as a company what you want people to be doing and what you believe like high performance is. Like we're not going to tell you what high performance is. You're going to define that for yourself as an organization, but you
exactly.
need to do that, like define it and then just be transparent about that. Like if you're not going to promote somebody until they've been in a job for 2 years, I don't agree with that. I think you
Yeah,
should promote people when they get to the like when they're already doing the next level. That should all be clear. They should get promoted. But if you're
yeah,
not going to, be explicit about that. That's fine. Like it's better to be transparent than to just not tell people what it is. And it's like, no, sorry, I can't promote you. Like you're doing everything but I can't do it. It's like, but at least if you had explicitly said you must be in role for 18 months or 24
yeah,
months or maybe it's a range, then do all these things and be in the role for this amount of time, then you will be uh there's a possibility of promotion. You still might not even get promoted, but at least be transparent and be
yeah,
explicit. And then people will do what they need to do and they'll be clear about it.
yeah, yeah. Fantastic. Very cool. All right. So, what is the one trend you see shaping the future of organization cultures?
Is everybody saying AI? You're
Almost.
like, no, please.
Please.
Um, I mean, we'll see how there's so many things shaping it at the same time right now. It's kind of crazy. I think the speed of change is probably something that has always been a thing, but as we know, I think it's Moore's law, or it's like it's going aggressively faster, and we're kind
Yes.
of holding on to our seats. I think the rate of change is something that is very impactful in terms of how companies are thinking about organizational design and flexibility and scaling up, scaling down, scaling out, like how flexible is a company.
Yeah,
Um, I think the ability to adapt to change obviously is a huge competency that's sort of required at this stage for pretty much anybody that works, but not
exactly.
everybody has that. And it's really tough for some people. And um, I think also, you know, what I find kind of interesting as well from like a culture perspective is that there are so many companies who are now distributed, and a lot of US companies, you know, expanded outside of the US over COVID and over that whole period. And there's this kind of push towards more Western approach to behavior within the workplace. And I've seen it because I'm working with companies that are German that default to English as their native working language, even though the company is based in Berlin, or same with uh, companies in South America. Um, and I was speaking with a DEI sort of consultant
Mm.
a while ago who was talking about her experience training employees, high potential employees, to self advocate. And that's like a big part of these kind of trainings. Like, you need to have this behavior and you need to have this competency. And I challenged that notion. I was like, why is that what they need to do? Like, why don't we change how we reward and recognize people instead of like force people into certain behaviors? And I think that this is something that really was motivating as a drive for me starting Pando, was the recognition that when it comes to career development and performance, where you come from, like your cultural background, if you're Russian, if you're Korean, if you're American, really affects the way that you behave when it comes to getting promoted, getting feedback. Is constructive feedback, critical feedback even a thing in your culture? Sometimes no. And yet we're like moving, towards this is how to be a high performing team and to operate. And I think that it's way more nuanced than that. And I think
Yeah.
on one hand, that's an area that I think AI could actually help connect the dots a bit, where um, you you could potentially have kind of this like go between that sort of smooths out these cultural differences without, forcing people to behave in a certain way, right? I mean, of course, everybody has a choice what company they join, and every company has their own culture. But I think that's something that I've found a little more striking now that companies kind of scattered and people are everywhere. And we work with Oyster, who has employees in, I don't know, 80 countries, so it's really important that we sort of think about that stuff as well, and not assume that there's one specific right way to behave, and rather how do we kind of build systems that set people up for success in their
Yeah.
roles and make it transparent so everyone is, recognized and rewarded appropriately. It's a dream. One day, I hope.
You're not far off from it. So this is an example. This is an exact example from one of my favorite books, The Organizational Culture and Leadership by Edgar Sheehan. He's my hero kind of thing. That's what I follow. And there is an example exactly like this. A U.S. company comes in and starts a program, a couple of years program, where they're teaching everybody how to do performance management or performance reviews, or in fact feedback. And their feedback is that they do one-on-ones feedback. And there is a contingent of the Japanese team, and they're just at a HR event where the CHRO is declaring that we have had a successful implementation of this change in giving how do we give feedback. And the Japanese team nods along, and they talk to the culture consultant and they'd say to him, this is not we agree whatever is going on is fine, but this is not how we do things. We do not
Yeah.
we have different ways to provide feedback to
And
our
we're actually
subordinates.
not even doing it.
Yes, we're not even doing it. Exactly. We
Yeah.
just went along with the training and so on, so just for the sake of it. Um,
Yeah.
Earlier you brought out sorry, go ahead if you wanted to add something.
No, I was just saying I was agreeing or
Yeah. And earlier we brought about the agility part of it. Again, the reason why we exist as Ezini is to help organizations become more agile and be adaptable, because the world is so complex. Pace of change is increasing tremendously because the world is already complex. And then guess what? Complex adaptive agents such as you, me, organizations, groups interact and create further complexity in the environment. And in order for the teams to really be successful, they need to be agile. They need to be able to adapt to changes and pivot as quickly as possible. At the same time, after reading Fifth Discipline, and which talks about systemic thinking, it also talks about, and this is something which I want to write an article on, is the when to be agile and adaptive and when to be more step back and slow down and think about long-term consequences of your actions. Because
yeah.
half the time when you make a decision, you don't get to see the result of it. So you don't learn from it because you don't see the result, because they're going to be 5 years down the line, 2 years down the line. So you've got to
I
be
think it's an
careful.
important point,
Yep.
especially like I've been working with companies and founders that are, very agile. And then it's like, it's constant reinvention of the goals and the steps and
Yeah.
the like, I've worked with companies who were changing their company level goals every quarter. And it was like, whoa. Like, how about we have like annual goals and then we adapt on a quarterly basis how we're going
Yeah.
to, achieve. And based on what we achieved, how are we going to, what are we going to do next quarter or whatever? Like, maybe that's not the
Yeah.
exact right format, but like just having that flexibility in between. And also, having a big picture vision, of course, that you're working towards. And I find that when you are super agile, sometimes you definitely need to take a step back and be like, okay, because being agile can get you somewhere quickly.
Yes.
It doesn't necessarily bring you to the place that you're trying to get to. So it's like you want to be able to move fast and
Yeah.
adapt, but you also want to make sure that you're on the right path, and you need to have those checkpoints for sure.
Absolutely. And this, as soon as you were talking about it, and I guess this is great, input for my future blog. The way to move forward is going to be to use OKRs. It's a fantastic way of doing this in a quarterly basis, long-term goals, divided into OKRs, looking at it every quarter and making changes as needed.
Yeah. Cool.
Well, fantastic. One last question before we move on to rapid fire. What is one piece of advice you'll give to leaders about fostering a positive culture?
I think be as transparent as possible and lead by example. We started this conversation by me telling you I cleaned baseboards, and I think like doing the baseboard cleaning version of whatever work you do as a leader is important.
Yeah.
I remember one time I had this highly capable marketing event marketer who was planning this huge event, and she had like so many balls in the air, but we needed to hire somebody, and she hadn't gone through all of her application. Like, we had 100 applications for an event coordinator that she was supposed to hire, and she was doing all these other things, and I sat and like went through the application review. It's an important thing to do because we need to get like a short list of people that we could then decide if we're phone screening or whatever. But it was like also pretty low level work. I was the CMO, but I did it because it was something I could do to help her. That wasn't all
Yeah.
this other stuff that she already had a handle on, but also we needed to do. And it's like just jumping in and doing things like that and showing people that work for you that you're willing to roll up your sleeves and do whatever you need to do. And I wasn't a founder. Like, of course, as a founder, I do even shittier, lower level stuff than that. And
Yeah.
I'm not trying to say that reviewing applications is a bad job. It's just at the time, this wasn't something that I was normally doing, but she really appreciated it. It was like, wow, you're really hands on. And I did. I just helped her help us, basically.
Yeah. Leaders, that's what they're supposed to. That's what we are supposed to do. We are supposed to unblock our team to move forward. And
Yeah,
it's not that we have to do it all the time, but when the capacity increase or there's an overflow, there's low bandwidth, there is always time for the leader to come in, step in, and say, "How can I help you? How can I move things along for you? How can I?"
indeed.
Yeah, exactly. Fantastic. Thank you. I love it.
Yeah,
Transparency is my favorite. Anyways, in that walking the talk, being the leader, being there to de-stress your team by taking on some work, it'll work wonders for any team, any company, for sure.
indeed.
Awesome. All right. So some rapid fire questions. What book do you recommend the most?
I mean, there's so many, but I think given this topic, Illuminate by Nancy Duarte. She's written 3 books. She has a consulting agency in Silicon Valley that started as like visual slide storytelling and has evolved to how do you basically drive change through storytelling. And that book is kind of a deep analysis of very famous speeches and things like that by prolific leaders who have really ignited change in one way or another. And I think that's what we're talking about here. So highly
Fantastic. No,
recommend.
I'll write that and add it to my
Yeah.
list, and the audience will as well. What's one thing that people would be surprised to learn about you?
Besides that, I cleaned baseboards, probably that I got I went to school for fashion and I used to be a designer, stylist, makeup artist. I lived in New York. I worked with a designer and I did all that before I got into tech. And it was my stepstone into tech in some ways, but yeah, totally different life.
Yeah, that makes sense. But you know what? Someone once told me every step takes you towards your destination. And entrepreneur's journey. This is our CEO that I'm talking to in Japan, and he talks about every step. It's like your life as a CEO or entrepreneur is not going to be a straight linear line. It's going to be taking you in all over different directions. So you never know where you're going to be. So
Indeed.
great. One last one. How can our listeners connect with you?
LinkedIn, it's pretty much my only social media, and I'm there every day.
I hear you. That's where I live as well. Fantastic. Thank you. So there you have
Of
it, folks.
course.
Yep. There you have it, folks. Another great episode. And thank you, Barbara. We love everything that you brought to the table. I love everything that you said. It was an honor to host you. And thank you so much.
Thank you.